Denver is back home as we close in on the halfway point of the season, looking to turn the tide of the 2021 slate against Washington. It's a game that features a familiar face on offense who we haven't seen since week 1, and a Hall of Famer getting a well-deserved spot in the Broncos Ring of Fame. Welcome into Broncos Weekend, everybody. I'm Matt Boyer, alongside Alexis Perry and the Hall of Famer Steve Atwater. Guys, we've had 10 days between games for the Broncos, and they've needed pretty much all of that time to get healthy. They're dealing with a lot of injuries. Von Miller and Mike Purcell did not practice all the way through Thursday of this week. Broncos add Kenny Young and Stephen Weatherly at the linebacker spots via trade. But, Alexis, the biggest addition that the Broncos might get this week off of the injury list, Jerry Jeudy, as we take a look at the wide receiver matchup this week. Alexis, Judy's return, obviously the biggest addition the Broncos have gotten off the injury front so far this year.
Yes.
He's only played in one game in 2021, but how much better can the offense be with him in the lineup?
They can be immediately better with Jerry Jeudy in the lineup, even if Teddy Bridgewater and Jerry Jeudy don't connect a single time on Sunday. Now, I definitely don't think that's going to happen. I think he will be targeted early and often in this game. But Jerry's effect on this game really comes down to respect and resources. A defense has to respect him because he is such an elite route runner. Safeties can't cheat in this game. So if they're staying home in order to help out over the top, you have linebackers. They're going to have to really focus in on the run game. And of course, obviously, those short and intermediate passes. So Jerry Jeudy, he is a guy that will help Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton will not be double teamed in this game like we have seen him in weeks past. He's going to have such a massive effect on this game. Like I said, even if he doesn't have a single catch, which I think he'll have probably close to double digits. I'm feeling good this week for Jerry Jeudy.
He's had a minimum of 5 targets dating back to last year in week 15 when he's healthy. So speaking of targets, Steve, on the other side, Terry McLaurin, he's the 5th most targeted wide receiver in the NFL this year. He was targeted 12 times last week against the Packers, 69 for the year. Only 4 players in the league, as I mentioned, have been targeted more, Steve. If you stop Terry McLaurin, do you stop the Washington football team? Is it that simple? How can these guys hurt the Broncos in the air?
Yeah, well, I definitely think we gotta keep our eyes on Terry McLaurin. He's definitely Taylor Heinicke's favorite weapon. He actually bails him out of some bad throws. He's had some suspect throws, and Terry McLaurin has come through with some amazing catches. I think that's going to be a big part of it. But I think also they're going to try to get the run game going. They're going to try to pound the ball a little bit and then try to throw some intermediate passes. They don't go deep that frequently, but they do a good job of throwing that intermediate pass, and they connect really well on that.
We've talked about the targets. Now let's take a look at the quarterbacks, the guys that are going to be tasked with getting them the ball, Taylor Heinicke and Teddy Bridgewater.
Yep.
Alexis, Teddy Bridgewater said this week, it's not time to panic, but it's almost time. How do you think that sense of urgency will translate to the field on Sunday for the Broncos?
Yeah, I don't think it's X's and O's. I really think that having a sense of urgency is really just a mindset, right? It's the level of intensity that the Broncos actually show up to the stadium with on Sunday. Now, in order to avoid panic mode, I really think these guys need to go all out from the jump, and they need to play through the whistle. They really, really do. They need to have fun. They need to play loose. They need to avoid overthinking things to the point where they're actually out of position. Over the past few weeks, I think we've all noticed that this team really plays their best when the game is seemingly out of hand because they are loose. They do just have that, well, we might as well leave it all out on the field kind of mentality. That's the kind of mentality they need to have from the jump and play that way throughout all 4 quarters. If they can do that, I really think we'll see the scoreboard reflect that this week.
This is a team that's giving up 300 yards passing per game. So if there's going to be a get-right game, this would hopefully be the one for the Broncos. Steve, on the other side, second straight week, the Broncos see a backup quarterback in Taylor Heinicke. Ryan Fitzpatrick, of course, out. Broncos have struggled to get takeaways. This is a guy, Heinicke, who fumbled twice against Green Bay, was sacked 4 times. Is there anything that the Broncos can do this week to take advantage of some of the things that Heinicke does and get some of those turnovers they've been looking for?
Well, it's the same recipe every single week, right? I mean, if you get pressure on the quarterback, you have a much better chance of rattling him, make him throw some bad passes in that. But I would say one thing that we haven't done extremely well is when we're playing zone coverages, the linebackers just getting enough depth. You got to get back to 10, 12, 13 yards and break up on the shorter routes. A lot of times we're playing the shorter routes and then they'll throw the ball right back in the zone where we should be. I think that will help us out a lot. I like to see us play a lot of man-to-man coverage because when Taylor Heineke's receivers are covered, he's really got to fit it in there. And again, he's thrown a few suspect balls, and I think we can get some turnovers if we play good, solid man-to-man coverage. But I don't think it's as much on what they do as it is what the Broncos do, how the Broncos cover, their mindset for the game and all of that.
They're not afraid to chuck it. They've given up 11 interceptions already this season. So a guy who's going to be looking for an errant pass here this week is going to be Pat Surtain as we take a look at that defensive matchup this week. Alexis, the defense had a rough game against the Browns, but Surtain has consistently earned praise from Vic Fangio. What's been his biggest strength, and what did he prove to you in that Cleveland game?
Well, Pat Surtain, he has so much going for him. He obviously has the physical skill set needed to be a great defensive back in this league. But for me, the thing that's impressed me the most is just his intelligence. He's a rookie that simply does not make mistakes. If he gets beat, which is actually really rare, it's never catastrophic. As you guys have probably seen, PFF pointed out that in 211 coverage snaps this year, he has yet to give up a completion of 20 or more yards. So you're not seeing quarterbacks really pick on the young guy because they're saying, hey, if I want to connect on a deep ball, I should probably look to the other side of the field, not to the side that Pat Surtain is on. So that is huge. He obviously is gaining a ton of respect from other offenses in the league. They're not picking on him. So Pat Surtain, he's just incredibly reliable. He's so exciting to watch. I've been highly impressed with him. I now see why the Broncos drafted him first.
These Alabama defenders come into the league NFL ready, and Jonathan Allen, Steve, on the other side for the Washington football team, playing very well, an Alabama alum himself. When you think of this Washington defense, though, you think of Chase Young, the Washington defenders that can give you fits, but Allen has 5 sacks. Chase Young only has 1.5. What catches your eye about this pass rush and what these players can do defensively?
Yeah, they have so many talented guys along that defensive front, and I'm glad that they aren't playing super well on the back end because if they were doing that, they would be a complete defense. Now, they have some players there, but I think they got a few things they got to work out there. But, yeah, come on, Montez Sweat, you got Jonathan Allen, you got Chase Young, Deron Payne. Those guys get after the quarterback. You see them making plays not only trying to sack the quarterback, but when the ball is thrown down the field, they're running down the field full speed, trying to get on those tackles. It's going to be tough. Nothing's going to be easy in this game for offense. They got to have their mindset set on going out there, again, like Alexis said, playing to the whistle, because these guys are going to play to the whistle.
Young, Allen, Payne, Sweat, all first-round picks.
Oh,
this
man.
is a position group or a group that the Washington football team has heavily invested in the draft the last couple of years. They're going to be a group that are going to be at the forefront of Pat Shurmur's mind all week long as he prepares for this game. We've got to take a quick break, but when we come back on Broncos Weekend, we'll show you the storied history between these two franchises, including Rod Smith's famous first catch. Plus, as Peyton Manning goes into the Ring of Fame this weekend, who could follow he and Steve into the Ring of Fame with an orange jacket? We'll tell you next. Denver's history with the Washington football team dates all the way back to 1970. But the Broncos had to wait until 1980 to score their first win. That season, Craig Morton and Rick Upchurch led a comeback victory on Monday Night Football with a 32-yard touchdown hookup as Denver beat Washington 20-17. These two teams have met only once in the postseason, and the memory is a tough one for Broncos fans. In Super Bowl 22, Doug Williams threw for 340 yards passing and 4 touchdowns as Washington beat Denver 42-10. Since then, however, Denver has lost only once to Washington when the two teams meet in the Mile High City, with the wins ranging from the dramatic to the dominant. In 1995, John Elway found Rod Smith as time expired for a 43-yard touchdown as Denver shocked Washington 38-31. It was Smith's first touchdown and first career catch. In 2005, Denver defended home turf again as Ian Gold swatted Mark Brunell's pass in the end zone on a 2-point attempt, preserving Denver's 2-point lead with just over a minute left to give them a 21-19 win. And in 2013, the last time Washington visited Denver, Peyton Manning led the Broncos to their biggest win in the all-time series.
Tight right. Here's the quick throw. Thomas has it. Lots of room to run. Inside the 25-20. Here we go. 15-10. 5. Touchdown, Demaryius Thomas.
Manning threw 4 touchdown passes to go along with a Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie pick six as Denver destroyed Washington 45-21. Currently, the all-time series between Denver and Washington is deadlocked, with each team at 7 wins, 7 losses. A Broncos win on Sunday would keep the Broncos unbeaten at home against Washington since 2001. A Craig Morton comeback, Rod Smith's first catch, a dominating performance by Peyton Manning. This series has everything. Welcome back to Broncos Weekend, everybody. Okay, Steve, you were 3-2 lifetime against the Washington football team. You only played them 5 times. All right. There were some fierce battles in there. We just saw Rod's first catch. What were some of the moments that stand out to you when you think about those tough battles?
Well, yeah, most definitely the most memorable one was Rod Smith catch. 1 target, 1 reception, 1 touchdown, 43 yards to win the game. That was huge. And then I just remember us playing the Redskins. I remember us losing to the Redskins in Washington a couple of times. And I remember one particular tackle on their running back, Jamie Morris, when I ran up in there, I slammed into him, and I was looking up at the top of the pile, and I saw somebody's hand there. I'm like, man, get your hand out of there. And I'm like, oh, that's mine. And I had to obviously come out of the game because, you know, had a little bit of a stinger there.
for obvious reasons there. Steve, this weekend is special for a couple of reasons. Obviously, you know, Peyton Manning is going into the Ring of Fame. We had mentioned it at the top. This is a guy that you've gotten to know a little bit because your Hall of Fame inductions were on the same weekend this year. Since you've been back, you guys have done some events together. What have you learned about Peyton these last couple of years, both the player and the person, that maybe you didn't know coming into, you know, your current role with the Broncos?
Yeah, I really didn't know Peyton. I saw him from afar, admired his game from afar, and you know how he is as a person. But getting to know him, just seeing how much a stickler he is for perfection, how hard he works, and you know the things that he demands of others. You know, looking back on this tape, I see him argue with his offensive lineman, like, Peyton, man, you pushing it now. These guys are huge, but he go toe to toe with them, and you know, he's just a great leader, great person, and you know, he's got a wonderful family. He's everything that you want to be. Just a great guy.
Steve, this is the last Ring of Fame ceremony that we're going to see for this year. We saw Mike Shanahan's ceremony from 2020 delayed until a couple of weeks ago. Peyton, obviously, this weekend. Now we look ahead to the Ring of Fame, and there's going to be some names that are going to come up, some older names, because there isn't really a clear-cut recent favorite to go in the Ring of Fame. So is there anybody that you think right now deserving, they're all deserving, but anybody that comes to the front of mind here as we look forward to 2022 and beyond for the Ring of Fame?
Yeah, man, when I went back and looked at it, man, there's 4 or 5 guys that I was like, these guys absolutely deserve to be in the Broncos Ring of Fame. First off, I started off Al Wilson, one of the greatest inside linebackers in Broncos history. We hate how his career ended with his injury, his neck injury and all that, but still great inside linebacker, great player. And then Sticky Hands.
Sticky Hands, Steve Foley.
Steve Foley, man. How can you not have the guy who's leading the Broncos organization in interceptions? He's got to be in the Ring of Fame. And then I go to a guy like Ryan Clady, a guy who went to 4 Pro Bowls, had 2 All-Pros, very successful career, and he's back in the Denver area. Get to see him from time to time. So, yeah, I'd love to see those guys get an opportunity to be in the Ring of Fame and experience just that Broncos country loving on them.
Riley Odoms, Ed McCaffrey, Al Wilson, you mentioned the Steve Foley. The list goes on, Steve. The committee is going to have its hands full.
Yes.
All of them are deserving. We hope to see all of them in Ring of Fame Plaza one day, and we know it's going to happen at some point in the hopefully not too distant future. We've got to take our last time out, but when we come back on Broncos Weekend, Alexis Perry is catching up with Broncos insider Troy Renck about how this Broncos team can get off to a flying fast start on Sunday. That's next. Welcome back to Broncos Weekend, everybody. For a local look now as to what the Broncos need to do to get back to winning ways, Alexis Perry is chatting with Denver 7's Broncos insider Troy Renck about a fast start for the Broncos on Sunday and which defensive player has a golden opportunity to prove himself this week.
Thanks so much, Matt. Troy, the Broncos have now lost 4 straight. The Washington football team, they are coming into the Mile High City hoping to snap a 3-game losing streak of their own. Throughout this week, what have you felt like the tone is for this Broncos team as they head into this Week 8 matchup?
Well, clearly, Alexis, it's a sense of urgency at this point to do things a little differently. They got into this 4-game losing streak by not focusing on some of the smaller details, and that's what I've sensed this week is the stressing of, yes, it is time. We've got to get this straightened out, and we need to really pay attention to the small things. We've heard that from the coaching staff and the players.
How do they remedy that? Obviously, getting off to a fast start, like you mentioned, has been such a tough thing for them lately.
Yeah, a fast start would help with confidence. And I think in terms of fast start, you need to be a little more creative on both sides of the ball. Offensively, add a little more motion before the snap. Having Jerry Jeudy back certainly will help. But be creative and show variance. Don't just run on the first couple downs. And defensively, I would look to blitz. I would look to create a takeaway to give my offense some confidence.
Well, you mentioned Jerry Jeudy. He is making his return to the lineup after missing the last 6 weeks. How does his addition to this lineup really change your expectations for this offense this week?
Well, listen, I've said this. Jerry Jeudy is better in space than NASA. He can get off the ball better than any receiver they have. He's open when he's covered. It also allows for quick throws, and that takes some of the pressure off the offensive line and Teddy Bridgewater. So it makes him more dynamic,
right,
but they've got to get him in the groove early. I would look to get him a few quick slants early in the game, get him some confidence as he returns from injury.
Well, Justin Simmons, he said that they are, working to obviously fix the issues going on here with this Denver defense. But at this point, enough of talking about it. They just need to go out there and get a win. What is the most glaring issue for this Denver defense, and how do they fix it this week against Washington?
Well, the issue for me has just been the inability to stop the run these past 4 weeks. The overall aggregate of the stats against the run look okay, but Dearness Johnson, he looked like Terrell Davis back in 1995, and we know this defense is better than that. They're talented. Now, Mike Purcell's not going to play, but the addition of Kenny Young, the new linebacker from the Rams, that could help. It's really about communication, making sure guys are in the right gaps on this rush defense, and that will clear it up. So teams face 3rd and long to allow their best players, Justin Simmons and Kareem Jackson, Pat Surtain, to be a factor when teams have to pass on down and distance.
You mentioned Mike Purcell. He is out of the lineup for this game on Sunday. Von Miller, he is questionable. We all know he wants to play, but if he can't go, who needs to step up most in his absence?
Well, for me, it's Jonathan Cooper. We saw the guy we saw in preseason against the Cleveland Browns. Just relentless pressure. He just missed on a strip sack. He needs to finish plays, but he brings real energy because Malik Reed's also hurting. So you could have a compromised outside linebacker room. Stephen Weatherly maybe steps in as well, the new guy from the Vikings. But I would look to Jonathan Cooper because he's a human Red Bull with his energy. He could be making a play that could turn this game around.
I love that. Okay, the Washington football team, what is their Achilles heel, either on the offensive side or the defensive side, that this Broncos team can really expose this Sunday?
Well, they can't get off the field on 3rd down. That's been the biggest problem, Alexis, when they've had some of the same issues the Broncos have had during their losing streak. But over 50% conversion rate against that defense. Now, they're really strong up front. Chase Young is an all-pro type talent, but their secondary has struggled in part because they get into short 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 3s, so they're vulnerable against big plays in the passing game. But that's where the Broncos need to capitalize, is attack that secondary, because that secondary has really struggled for Washington.
Troy, thank you so much for your time. Of course, follow him on Twitter at Troy Renck, and you can always catch him on Tuesdays for our Broncos Country Connected show that airs at 6:30 on Denver 7, then at 7 o'clock on the Broncos YouTube channel. Matt, let's send it back to you.
Thank you, Alexis. Okay, Steve, the Broncos haven't had a 5-game losing streak since 2017, and nobody wants to see it snapped more than you and the guys across the way in that locker room. So how are they getting it done? Your keys to the game.
First off, I would say we got to get off to a fast start, not only on the offensive side of the ball, but also defensively by being dominant, not giving up any big plays, stuffing the run, coming out there with an attitude and playing to the whistle. And secondly, I would say we got to protect Teddy Bridgewater. We cannot let Teddy Bridgewater get hit 15, 16, 17 times. 5 or 6 at the most. We really don't want him to get hit at all, but you got to minimize the number of times he gets hit.
For me, Steve, the Washington football team these last couple of weeks, we mentioned it, giving up a lot of yards through the air, but a lot of those passes have been of the 5 to 7 yard variety. A lot of those completions have been to the tight ends and running backs. The Broncos wanted to utilize the running backs against the Browns, and they did it to great effect. They had 2 touchdowns through the air to both running backs. The key for me, Steve, is Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. If they can add that run game to that short passing game they proved that they could establish last week, I think they can get a win. Throw Noah Fant in there, the tight ends. I think they can really establish that short area passing game. What do you think?
Oh, I like it. And Jerry Jeudy coming back, that's not going to hurt.
that is not going to hurt at all. That'll do it for us today on Broncos Weekend. Special thanks to the Hall of Famer, Steve Atwater. I'm Matt Boyer. So long, Broncos country. We will see you next week.